Welcome to Syntax. This is our 2024, a year in review. We're going to take a look back at what happened this year in web development in general. What did we do as a podcast? And most importantly, we're going through our predictions. So every year, at the beginning of the year, we predict what will happen. And we'll take a look at if we got some of those very, very wrong. And some of them we were bang on. So I'm excited to get into that. My name is Wes. I'm a developer from Canada. With me, as always, is Scott. How you doing, Scott?
Oh, hey, man, I'm doing good. Right now, at our house, this is the second week in less than a month where we have some kind of stomach bug going around. First, it was one kid, and we all kind of came out unscathed, if not for a little like sore tummies and stuff. But man, we got a whole different stomach bug. Probably came from a birthday party or something we took our kids to, and it is tough. It is tough to have to wake up to clean up after kids several nights. It is
rough.
Man, it is rough. So yeah, I'm feeling a little bit. I'm feeling that aspect of it. But hey, I'm here. I'm doing good. We recently got back from a couple of conferences, and I'm going to Disney soon. So it's just like I'm feeling in a good place. Good way to cap off the end of the year, right? How you feeling?
I'm feeling great. I'm excited for 2025 and excited for all the stuff we have planned. Actually, maybe let's talk about that right then and there. Is we have some changes coming to the Syntax lineup, not the lineup. Basically the types of content we are creating. So we are going to go down from 3 podcasts a week down to 2 a week. And the podcasts are going to be, like, traditionally what we do is we do a hasty on Monday, a tasty on Wednesday, and a guest on Friday. What we're going to do now is simply make the podcast as long as it needs to be for the content and not stick to a specific type on every single day. So you can look forward to that. And then that's going to free us up to do a little bit more video. So we've got all kinds of ideas of YouTube stuff that we can do. Right, Scott? Pretty excited about all of it. And we're going to start cooking on all of those things. And that should be on Friday, right?
Yes. So, even give some background on this is, when the podcast first started out, we just did 1 episode a week, and then we did 2 episodes a week, and then we brought on the interview episodes. And we largely had that format for, it took a little while for us, maybe 2 or 3 years before we added interview episodes as even a thing, right? It still feels brand new to me. And it did feel like we're always kind of like having to fit the content into the format, right? We had the format, let's figure out how we can fit it in the format. And sometimes that worked out no problem. And I think for the most part it did. But we heard, especially in the survey that we put out, that maybe there's too much. We're putting out too much, and maybe sometimes a topic could be covered in less time, or we need more time on something. So we decided to give ourselves more freedom and flexibility here so that on Monday and Wednesday, right, the topics that we find to be interesting, we can spend as much time as we want to on those topics that we find interesting. And that doesn't mean the interview episodes that we typically did will be going away. We'll still be doing interviews, but we won't have to do interviews just to do interviews. We will do interviews with the people who have the most interesting and exciting things to tell us. And that way, it doesn't feel like a book tour or we're just having the same guests on that everybody else is having. We want to really make sure that what we're producing comes first and foremost. So yes. And also to head off anybody who might say that Sentry's behind this is purely Wes and I's decision here. So, we don't even have any Sentry handlers in the podcast team anymore.
It's just us.
It's just us.
It's just us going wild. But I think also with that is that there's a lot of some of the feedback we had is we went a little too video heavy a couple months ago. We've since peeled that back where if you're listening on audio, you don't want to have to see the video. Yeah. But there are other topics that make so much more sense to show on a video because you can be showing code samples and whatnot. So it's nice to say, and we were talking about a couple of weeks ago, we're when we want to talk about something, we will have the medium for that, whether that's a 15-minute hasty treat or whether that's a 20-minute YouTube video or a full, we have to bring somebody on to talk about it. And I like that freedom of not having to worry about the content type.
Yes. Yeah, that too, and like, wanting to show more video. I think that both the podcast and the video podcast suffered because we weren't able to show as much video as we wanted to. But then when we were showing, like, we had to always be kind of riding that line. But by saying 2 episodes a week are going to be strictly podcast, although with video, right? The Friday, whatever we do on Friday, is going to be explicitly a video segment, something that we can do that makes way more sense for just video, and that way we won't have to worry about the audio product suffering from using video in that regard. So if you want to get everything that we're doing, it will be on Spotify, because Spotify shows video, and it will be on YouTube. So a lot of the stuff, YouTube specifically, is going to be the best place to catch everything. But again, your normal podcast player is going to get the Monday and Wednesday.
All right, so let's talk about 2024. What happened in the past year, right? Quite a bit in the web development space. I think probably a big one is React 19 was released. We've been sort of waiting for server components for many, many years, and 2024 was the year React 19 dropped. Server components are now stable. The React compiler came out, which is pretty interesting. I haven't seen like a lot of people using it just yet, but it's kind of, we have it. TurboPack is now stable. That's kind of the big things in the React space.
Yeah. Solid Start was released, which is the, Solid JS meta framework. So if folks out there were using Solid and really wishing there was a more like opinionated full stack framework for Solid, that was released. Also, Ryan Carniato joined Sentry. So shout out to Ryan. We got to get him actually on the show to talk about Solidland now that we had access to him before, but now that he's part of the Sentry team.
We had Tanner on talk about Tanstack Start. So Tanstack Start is Tanner Lindsley, who's behind React Query and React Location, I believe is his router, and behind a whole bunch of the really cool Tanstack packages. Tanstack Query is obviously probably the biggest one. He released a beta just last week of Tanstack Start, which is the like Next.js equivalent. It's client by default, opt into server, which is the opposite of Next.js. And it just seems like a really fresh approach to a framework in that. Also along this lines is Remix is dead. It's not really dead, but it's all of the parts of Remix have been moved back into React Router 7, and React Router 7 was released at the end of November. So I believe now, they haven't explicitly said it, but the idea now is you're not building a Remix app, you're building a React Router app. And I believe eventually Remix will go away and not be a thing anymore.
Yeah, it is one of those things I still don't feel like I understand like where that's at or what's happening there. But I think that's a good explanation. I'll be looking forward to even more clarity about what's going on, because I still people talk about like Remix, but like
yeah, it's kind of an odd one. Like they didn't, even in the announcement post, they didn't say like Remix is dead. But they did say, like, you should migrate. Here's how you migrate from Remix to React Router 7. So it's kind of a bummer, because the name Remix is sick. I like that a lot.
I know.
But
and the logo,
it makes sense that like the router really is the main part of your website, right? Most websites, you start from a router. And that's especially when we start doing server client stuff, you really have to buy in at a router level. So it makes sense that's why they've brought it back.
Yeah, totally. And also, let me just say, back to the Tanstack stuff, man.
Yeah.
Hanging out with Tanner at JSNation, I know we got to hang out with him on stream, and he's such a dynamic, kind of like exciting person to talk to about this stuff. But just getting to hang out with Tanner at JSNation made me really like. I really just hope that stuff succeeds even harder, because what a cool dude! What a great really project. Cool. Yeah, really enjoyed spending time with him and getting to know him a little bit more. AI editors really popped. Specifically, Cursor was the big one that people have really been latching onto. Personally, myself, I don't use anything other than Cursor anymore, which is, it's short term here. It hasn't been that long. But I don't if VS Code opens by accident, I'm closing it. I'm opening cursor. I just really like the way that the UI works.
It feels really good. Yeah.
Yeah, I often see people, especially on Reddit, be like, I don't get why people like cursor. Is it really like just people hyping it up who get paid to say it and stuff like that? I don't get paid say cursor's great.
No.
I don't even have any contact with the cursor team, but I use it and I love it. And for me, it fits that workflow just a little bit better than any other tool currently. I'm actually really excited to see, given that cursor has shaken things up so much, I'm excited to see like what comes next from that.
Totally. Because like we did see at GitHub Universe, Copilot released a lot of the features, not all of them. Still waiting for a couple, and then also Codium released their own fork of VS Code called Windsurf. And it's gunning for the same area. But Codium's also been in that space of like context, providing context to the model for quite a while. And it's interesting that they have their own editor. So quite a bit popping. You're starting to see these like dudes on Twitter who say they built entire apps with it, which I'm not buying, because like every time you see one of these guys, they've got a course to sell you and an empty GitHub. So I don't know if I buy that just yet, but it's an exciting time for sure.
Yeah, an exciting time. And in general, with AI tools overall, it's a scary time, I think, as well. But I think right now, we're at the position where you can use these things and feel very productive or take care of a lot of stuff without having some sort of crisis of, am I just a robot writing out code that a robot could do better or something? There's also Vite 6 was released very recently. It was released in November, I believe November 26th. And
that's today, as of recording this, it was released a couple hours ago.
Yeah, not just a good memory. I'm actually terrible with dates and time. So the fact that I know that is because it came out today. Vite 6. Man, Vite is one of those projects that I'm so happy to see continue to grow, continue to evolve, and now it's part of Void Zero, which is, I believe, the funding platform. We're going to have Evan New on to talk about this to really get a handle on exactly what Void Zero is. But Vite 6, stoked to see that these changes are still advancing, and one thing I'm really excited about is the eventual addition of roll down, which is the next gen version of ESBuild and rollup. So combining the functionality of those two, having one thing to do all of your builds and having it be as fast as ESBuild or faster, who knows? I don't even know. But roll down, a really cool project, and it's one of those ones that like very, very, very excited for it, and hopefully we'll get to try it next year.
Yeah, the thing with Vite is that in development they use ESBuild, and then when they build your app, they use rollup, and it's always been two different ones. And I guess there's some inconsistencies, although I've never hit any myself, thankfully.
I'm sure it's harder on them to maintain both of those, right?
Oh, I guarantee. Yeah, you have to make two things do the exact same thing in development and in build. That's tricky. So yeah, Evan Yu has this company called Void Zero, which has raised some money. And I think the idea with the company is they build this amazing open source software, and then they'll eventually have some things that you can buy from them. And I bet it's going to be similar to the TurboPack, where you can cache your builds and share them between both build servers as well as developers' machines.
Yes. I would love all of that stuff. Faster, better, faster, smaller, all that stuff. One cool thing that really, came about at the end of the year was kind of the reemergence of Bluesky. We did an episode on Bluesky when it first dropped. We talked a little bit about this AT protocol, and at the time, I just didn't necessarily. It felt like blockchain. It felt like Web3, and I didn't necessarily believe that it was anything super interesting. But the more and more that Bluesky has evolved here, now the platform is smooth as hell to use. So using Bluesky is no longer like a worse version of Twitter. For the most part, it's a better version of Twitter in many regards, with the exception of maybe like video, right? I think there's some things here or there that Twitter still does better, but Bluesky...
There's a lot of features, but it's an exciting change in the web development community.
Yeah,
not because...
But, hey, It works better. That's what I mean. Like I have so many weird pop-in bugs with Twitter.
Yeah.
Tweets popping in here or there, or a refresh thing's not happening, or showing
Just
me a bunch of
odd.
dog shit. Yeah, I think overall it works better as an app, whether or not the features are there.
Very good app. It's very impressive. It's also React Native. It's pretty cool. But like all of that aside, and also like political BS aside as well, because like I was kind of shocked that like I was really excited that the web development community was moving there, just because I like that there's multiple places for community to be. And then it turned into this weird like political thing in the States. I don't give a single crap about any of that stuff. All I care about is there a spot where we can talk to other web developers that feels really good? And I still love Twitter. I'm still there, but I'm excited that there's like, I grew up on forums and there was many places for people to be. And this is starting to feel like a pretty good spot for web developers, which is exciting when there's more community. Because like I feel like a lot of developers were kind of burned out on Twitter because they're not able to share what they're excited about, because you have to play this algorithm game, and that's exhausting when you just want to say, I made this cool thing, and for people to see it.
And when you say you love Twitter, I'm going to say it, not for any specific reason other than content and usability. I don't like Twitter. I really don't like it because, one, it's the algo is so aggressive in what it shows me that I'm often like, I'm not seeing garbage. Anything I want to see. I'm seeing a lot of rage bait. I'm seeing a lot of people fighting, and I try to dismiss or hide or mute any of that stuff and only follow, engage with people I actually want to hear from. But at the end of the day, I'm still not seeing the content from people who I follow as much as I am on Bluesky, which is why it feels better. I'm not playing the algo games. I'm not working really hard on something, sending it out and having two people see it because the algo didn't pick it up, right? So, there's a lot of weird little things about it. But either way, I think the protocol behind this is something that is the most interesting thing, where it's kind of like, I can't wait to talk to Dan. We're going to have Dan Abramov on the show and really dive into this. But it does feel very RSS adjacent in terms of the feed exists, and Bluesky is just an interface for the feed, whether that is in the Bluesky app or you're working with the feed in other ways. And I think that's the most exciting part about it in general.
Yeah, I think it's really neat that you can literally fork the entire Bluesky app and connect it up, and you can build your own client. You can host your own version of something, which I think us web developers really like, the fact that you can host your own data.
Yeah.
Will any of us do it? I highly doubt it. Half the people on Bluesky haven't even assigned a domain name to their handle yet. They're just using the built-in one. But
most people didn't edit their MySpace profiles either, but a handful of people did, and it got them really interested in learning HTML and CSS. So I think that's like kind of, back in the earlier days of Twitter when the API was still open, and you didn't have to bankrupt you to use it. The people were doing some of the coolest stuff with the Twitter API.
Tools come out of it.
And that's the stuff that I miss. I miss the most. Yeah.
Yeah. There's so many cool little projects. Like I even just built a little count on my Stream Deck that will show like when a new follower comes in. And yeah, it's just being able to hack on that kind of stuff is really exciting. And it's funny because a year and a half ago, I did a whole bunch of examples. And now when Bluesky popped again, all of those examples were getting popular, and people are sending pull requests in. And a lot of people ran the code without seeing what it did. So I had a couple of bots in there that would auto reply. And so every now and then I get people reply to me with their bots that they obviously were just randomly running code from a stranger on the internet.
Okay, so, back to web stuff.
Exciting stuff. Yeah, no, that is web stuff though. Like that's our community, man. And
totally.
It's really cool. And I'm kind of bummed that it's been hijacked as a political thing, which is not, I honestly don't think that's where that discussion needs to be. It's just all about like where we hang out.
Yeah, totally.
But CSS, so many crazy things came to CSS or are coming in the next year. CSS has landed late 2023, so we started to 2024 was probably the year we see people using CSS has. Relative color is starting to be well supported, pop over, and then all the stuff around just starting style, allow discrete, calc size, where I think it's a lot of JavaScript replacements, right? You did a talk on all this stuff.
I did a talk on all this stuff, and man, it's not even just that. It's not even the stuff that we can use today. It's the stuff that came onto the radar that is now going to be here soon, right? Yeah, the starting style, animating when things enter and leave the DOM. The parent selector, I know that came at the very end of last year, but it also, I think, came to all the browsers more recently. And invokers, which is a newer API we've talked about a couple of times, but that's replacing JavaScript to invoke things like opening a modal or starting and stopping an audio player. Invokers being done with just purely HTML. So yes, we're not only getting better JavaScript tools, which, we're JavaScript dudes. We love JavaScript tools. What's that? We're Costco guys. We're JavaScript guys.
We like JavaScript
world,
tools. The Costco guys, yeah.
It is it's a wild world.
We could do a whole podcast talking about the Costco guys. I got some thoughts.
I know. I do too. Did you watch them on the late night show? I believe they're on Jimmy Fallon or something.
I saw some clips though.
Oh, you should watch it.
I'm a little worried for the humanity that's what is the most popular thing. But also go get it. No kidding, that kid is probably getting loaded right now.
Yeah. Yeah, that and the Haktua girl, you're all right. It's not for me, but I can't really hate on it too much. You're making your 15 minutes worth it. So yeah, all this cool stuff, man. It is just replacing JavaScript, and the more that we can replace JavaScript, the better, more accessible by default, and just smaller applications will be able to ship with the tools we know and love, and therefore we won't have to reach for building native apps. We can use the web, which, hey, we love the web.
Exactly. Big fan of all of that. What did we do? We hit up tons of events this year, right? We were at React Miami. We did a Syntax Live there up in March. You were at JSNation in Amsterdam. When was that? June, July?
Yeah, sometime around then. It was, I think it was June or July. I'd have to look at my calendar. I'm bad with dates. But it was in the first little bit of the year, at least the first half of the year. And man, JSNation Amsterdam, one of the coolest conferences I've ever been to. There was 1,600 plus people. I did not realize, I'm so good about saying yes to things and then seeing the size of the stage and then being oh, what? I walked into JSNation Amsterdam, and I swear the seats just kept going and going and going. It looked like infinity to a point. Yeah, they
have a screen halfway down,
a massive screen too.
The screen itself is probably 40 feet tall. Most beautiful LED pixel panels. You can the blacks are just black, and then they have a second projector screen halfway down because it's so far back. And I don't know that there's conferences that big in the States, aside from maybe GitHub Universe, but I don't know that there's a web development conference that huge in North America.
It was so cool, and it was such a cool experience for me. But overall, conference was really great. A lot of amazing speakers. You got to hang with a lot of cool people, and it was a 3-day thing where they had a React Summit in Amsterdam, and they also had a CSS and web conference that Una was speaking at, and a bunch of really cool people. So it was just the coolest people popping in and out, and amazing audience. Got to meet a lot of great people. And we also did more recently JSNation US and React Summit US, where I was emceeing React Summit, which emceeing was a lot of fun. I'll be honest. I was nervous to MC. I'd never done emceeing in any regard before, and it's kind of just doing this podcast. You just show up and you get to either read from your notes or talk or whatever. I get to interview Kent C. Dodds, Eddie Asmani, Shruti Kapoor, and Theo Brown. I got to just be on stage and talk to those folks, and man, what a cool experience. You got to talk in a planetarium.
Yeah, again, speaking of wild screens, it was in a planetarium, and they projected our slides on this curved thing. I had to zoom my slides out just so that it wasn't I was watching it. I felt that the slides were too big. You had to crane your neck up and down just to read it. So I zoomed my slides out so you could see them without moving your neck. And it was a really cool conference.
Yeah, I had a great time. And then we also did, while we were there in New York, we did Terminal Feud, which was Family Feud. And by the time you're listening to this, it will be available on YouTube to watch, I believe. And
yeah,
man,
I think it's going on Prime's YouTube channel, the Primeagen. So check that out. That was hilarious.
Yeah, let me tell you, I am much worse at coming up with stuff on the fly than you would think I would be. Which, you know, there was, when we were doing that speed round, we were doing a speed round where Wes and I were supposed to be guessing different things that fit a prompt, and we ended up just guessing the same things. But since Wes went first, all of his answers were accepted. But so when they ask me a question, the first thing that pops into my head immediately is like, because Wes had already gotten it. So then my brain goes, oh no, I got to think of something else.
They're like, npm install blank, like fill in the blank, npm install anything. And you're just like, I can't think of anything to npm install.
I couldn't think of a single thing. It was like my brain has been wiped completely clear. Like the only thing I could think of was Node. I was like, npm install Node. That's what my brain went to. And I was like, I can't say Node. That's not like, that's going to, everybody's going to like completely clown on me. Well, I got 2 points from it because a couple of pity people had put in PNPM. I should not have said PNPM. Oh, yeah. I was thinking about it afterwards. I should have just said Svelte because, you know, that's I was up there wearing a Svelte t-shirt. And, you know, it's kind of my identity, but yeah.
Yeah, that was fun. We also did Laravel Terminal did a basketball game. Scott and I what do you call it? We didn't call it. We
were doing color commentary.
Commentary.
Yeah, typically in commentary, you have a play-by-play guy, or play-by-play person, and a color person. And you know what, man? Neither of us know basketball, so neither of us could do play-by-play. So we were both doing color commentary, and it was super fun. I came with a whole bunch of jokes and used all of them in the first 5 minutes, and then had to come up with more on the fly. But that was cool. That was a fun experience.
We had a meetup in San Francisco, and that was really fun. We had a couple hundred people come out. I think it was like between 250-ish or around 250 people. Quite a lot. We had a whole bunch of stickers and swag that we gave away. That was really fun. We had a whole team there. Met a bunch of really cool people. We had GitHub Universe. We did a couple podcasts live from the GitHub Universe floor, which again, that was a very large conference. I can't believe it's 5,000 people or something.
Definitely mind-blowing. Because we don't get to go to that many events like that.
No, and like I usually go to more like web development, homegrown confs, and like this was like corporate. Not that it was bad, but like big companies were there announcing very big things and partnerships and whatnot.
Yes,
we were there for all the VS Code, Copilot stuff, which is really exciting.
And we got to talk to Cassidy in our podcast booth, which was a lot of fun.
That was awesome, yeah.
Yeah, really cool.
I spoke at FITC, which is a Toronto conference. I highly recommend you go if you are like to visit Canada at some point, or you're from Canada. FITC is it used to be a Flash conference like 15 years ago, but now it's a pretty heavy web development. I talked about all the different JavaScript runtimes, so Bun, Dino, Node, and kind of went hard on the you don't have to worry too much about these different runtimes. It's because we have standards that will work everywhere.
Yes, totally. And we also did a whole bunch of podcast episodes. And not only that, a ton of video. I mean, syntax overall, man, we had a crazy year in terms of growth for us, where it is hard to imagine that at the beginning of the year, we were not on YouTube and we were not releasing these podcasts as videos. Now we've been doing it. It feels like since the jump, it's been going so long, and we hired CJ Reynolds to do video for us on YouTube. So, man, Syntax as a platform has really grown significantly, and especially with the push to YouTube, it feels full circle to me. And I know you've been doing YouTube a long time, but I really got my career start on YouTube in 2012. So for me, I put so much time into YouTube. It feels great to be doing a lot of video and a lot of YouTube. It feels like I'm back. I'm back.
You're
baby.
Back. Yeah, the OG.
Yep.
All right, let's get into our predictions. So every year we predict what will happen in the next year, and then we followed up at the end of the year, and we're going to go through and see how right or wrong we were.
Yes.
So the first one was types in JS will have real movement. haven't really heard a whole lot of that. The proposal is still sort of going through the process, but I thought we would be a little further ahead on this type of thing. Not that I'm mad about that, because if they are trying to figure out adding types to JavaScript, or at least adding the syntax of types to JavaScript, because that's what the proposal currently is. It's not adding types to JavaScript engine. It's just adding it to the syntax so that they can be parsed out, right? So you can use TypeScript or something similar with the syntax. So it's not like the browser will understand the types.
Yes. Well, I do want to give us some credit on this one. Node came with type support as far as being able to run code with TypeScript in it.
Yes,
so.
that's one that's a little later on this list was Node will introduce TypeScript support via loaders.
Okay.
And we didn't nail that as it's not necessarily a loader yet, but that is the idea. And Node did ship TypeScript support. So now you can run Node with .ts files, and it will simply strip them out and run with you, which is super exciting.
To me, that's types in JS having a real moment. That's a moment.
Yeah, you're right. That's true. Like that's Node recognizing
this is the way.
This is the way. This is people want this. And probably Dino and Bun have a lot to do with that. Pushing sort of Node into features that we want rather than having to cobble it all together.
Totally. Next one, the Temporal API will ship in one browser. That one's a big fat X. We did not get that, which is a bummer.
Safari has like 2 of the features behind a flag.
Do they really?
And that's it. But like not the whole API, just a couple little parts that have been behind a flag in, I think, in technical preview.
Oh, it looks like the technical preview has instant and duration and Safari
calendar,
looks like it's going to
zone.
Be the first to ship temporal. So hell yeah, Safari, cool.
Bet. It's such a huge spec. I think it's a bit daunting to have to implement it because there's so many pieces to it. But man, once this thing lands, being able to use it, I guess we could use it via polyfill now, but I'm ready to like rewire my brain to think in terms of temporal.
I already did that.
Yeah.
I've been using the polyfill for a little bit, which may be dumb or not, but I do like it, and you will like it too, folks. If you're out there and you're wondering, am I going to get that much out of the Temporal API? Yes, it eliminates the need for me to use a library at all for doing dates and times, and it just makes working with them way easier. Perf tooling gets easier for everyone to understand. I know we got a handful of perf tools in Sentry, but I don't know if you could definitively say that perf tooling has gotten easier for everyone to understand. The browser kind of hasn't changed in that regard. We still have all of the same tools, which are good, but yeah.
Yeah, I don't know that we nailed that one. I think if anything, like we got compiler in React, so that's a big win for perf, right?
Yeah,
and then we did get speculation rules as well, or maybe that's coming, but I don't know that the tooling around that got any better. But one that we did nail, CSS continues to get better where you need less JS. Absolutely nailed that. We just talked about all those CSS features where you don't need JS for them. Not that you should hate JS. It's just like if you don't need to run a bunch of JavaScript and DOM traversal, adding classes, wrapping things, duplicating elements. It's really nice to not have to.
Yeah, it is. And I think overall, I don't know if it's just vibes based, but it does feel like we're getting more and more DOM focused overall, whether that is via frameworks or HTML APIs and things like that. Getting more DOM focused, getting more HTML focused.
Yeah, web components. We didn't have anything in here about web components, but
that's surprising.
There was opinions on web components this year.
Yeah.
I like them.
Yeah, we mentioned Svelte 5. Svelte 5 was released and is very fast. We just recorded an episode. It was released on Wednesday about that. And yeah, the code's much smaller, very, very fast. And that's exciting for everybody.
The year of server in frameworks. I think we nailed this one. Is pretty much every framework has either the ability to do server, or you see a lot of stuff being server first, server by default, right? So Next.js, oh my gosh, I just clicked on one of the timestamps in the show notes, and it says West Boss, our old intro. It just scared the crap out of me.
West Boss.
Oh, that's great.
And it's funny, just, classically having to be contrarian, I have now moved further and further into the client side now that we have all the server side stuff. So that's just how it goes, right? I think it'll be interesting to see what our predictions are for next year, because I do have some predictions for next year. We had Astro's going to have a good year. Astro's had a good year, but I don't think anything explicitly
I think so. I think let's look at the NPM stats for Astro. I think Astro popped, man. Yeah, so Astro pretty much doubled their download numbers in the last calendar year, which is pretty impressive to me. So I would say that's a pretty good. It still is, if I were to compare it against Svelte is still 5-6 times larger.
Had a good year.
Downloads, but Svelte had a really good year. Astro had a really good year. So yeah, I think they did great. Our next one we had here is React server components will become popular. I think maybe we got this wrong. Not that server components are bad. I'm very much an enjoyer of server components, but I did not see the uptake. It seems like last year this time we were kind of just waiting around, seeing what people think. And I think we're still in a wait around and see what people think area. Obviously, a lot of people are using them, but I thought the uptake would be a lot more. And even like they're not in React Router Remix or Tanstack Start. So really, if you want to use server components right now, you're still using Next.js or one of these new frameworks that are kind of around them.
Yeah, we also had Remix moves away from page-based loaders to component loaders.
Well, they moved away.
Yeah, they moved away to, as we already mentioned, to being React Router. But again, that's not on my radar at all at this point. We also had Hono will become more ubiquitous, and yeah, I think Hono's been more used. CJ did a video on Hono that got a lot of views. So I would imagine that means that people are interested in picking up a modern Express alternative, and Hono seems to be the chosen.
Yeah, so Hono went from 36,000 downloads a day at the end of last year to 444,000 downloads. So exploded. Yeah. And along with Hono, we're also seeing all of the un.js ecosystem get really popular. It's kind of in the same area of Hono, which is basically standards-based server JavaScript. And you see a Hono equivalent, their Hono equivalent is called Nitro. But then we also saw Vinci, which is what Tanstack Start and Solid Start are built on top of. So some really exciting times for server standard JavaScript, or just standard JavaScript in general, because it doesn't matter a lot of times if it's on the server.
Yeah. Next one, URL pattern standard. We will see a route matching proposal move ahead, and then link to the URL pattern standard. I have not kept up with this at all.
I have not kept. So the idea here is that the writing patterns for routing, like you were to do in Hono or Express or anything like that, that standard is going to become a standard API called the URL pattern API, very similar to how we have the URL and URL search params in JavaScript. And it is currently still being worked on. It's last updated just a couple of months ago. So
it seems like it's in
very fleshed out.
It's in Chrome. It's been in Chrome since 2021, but no movement in Safari or Firefox. Maybe.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. All right.
Bun releases full node compat. We did not see this. They obviously continued to work on their node compat, but there still is quite a bit. In fact, they're part of the un.js ecosystem is this package called unenv, UNENV, and it actually brought Cloudflare workers and Bun and Dino all up to full Node.js compat. It's essentially just a transpiler plus polyfill for server JavaScript, which is pretty exciting. So we're at a spot now where if you have a Node API, you can pretty much run it in most of these runtimes, either via like Dino 2 has full Node compat. I tested it myself. I converted my whole course platform to run on Dino, and it worked. Or via unenv, which will sort of polyfill the parts that are not quite there yet. Bun is focused, I think, more on like killer features rather than Node compat, which people seem to be liking. They'll release something that is non-standard. And as much as the standards guy in me wants to say, no, do the standard, some of those APIs are pretty sweet, and I would like to also use them.
Yeah. We will also see a new linter formatter entirely replace, and the ones we had listed were, OXC, Prettier, Biome. I don't think any of that happened. I mean, there are things that people are using. People are using, it is Biome. I was thinking it was called Rome now, but that's the other way around. Rome became Biome. People are using Biome. It doesn't support all of the things that Prettier supports. And until something supports everything that Prettier supports, I'm not using it. So yeah, I don't actually understand the people who can use one of these and not have it. Let's see what it doesn't support right now.
Like work with everything.
Yeah, I believe it doesn't support like HTML or CSS or something.
Yeah, the killer feature is once they can parse HTML, then they'll be able to format lint pretty much anything, right?
Yes.
Like you can view, Svelte, whatever. It does support JSX, JavaScript, TypeScript, and CSS. So for a lot of people, their whole stack is covered already. And that was not the case a year ago. I'm still pretty bullish on Biome taking over, but I guess we'll see.
Yeah, I got to have that HTML support, even Markdown support. I want to have Markdown support, YAML support. I need it to support all of the things I use, because if I run into a situation, I hit save and my stuff doesn't. I don't even need linting for all of that. Just formatting. Give me formatting for everything I use, and I'm okay with that.
We said a new TypeScript type checker.
Did we really say that was going to happen?
Man, sweet summer child, if I thought that would come. No, that might never come. And I think, here's my thoughts on this. We're never going to have a new TypeScript type checker, but we will have something that comes after TypeScript eventually. And someone's going to come out with, probably the one project that you should watch in this space is called Esno. They are basically taking the TypeScript syntax, but building their own type checker on top of that, or not on top of it, but they're building their own TypeScript type checker. And I bet once that matures, we'll see people being like, all right, like TypeScript, the good parts, no enums and whatnot. The errors are a little bit better, but I don't even know that we're probably many years away from that being a reality.
Which feels wild, but at the same time, I get it,
Yeah, and
if it was easy, it would have happened.
Yeah, it's fine. And I love TypeScript. I mean, the type checker itself, it's almost always fine for my projects. Could be a little bit faster and whatnot, but it's not now that we have just strippers, it doesn't get in the way of your actual development.
Yeah. Now that we got strippers, Lightning CSS pops. Lightning CSS. Yeah, I didn't use Lightning CSS anymore, or less. It pretty much was in the same spot for me as it was when we recorded this episode.
Yeah.
And that's not a bad spot. It just, I haven't even been using post CSS, if we're being entirely honest. I've just been going straight up CSS mostly. Yeah,
that's maybe the new CSS killer framework is just regular CSS. Tailwind 4 is using Lightning CSS by default now, so that's probably a major one for using Lightning CSS. There's something else using Lightning CSS. So Lightning CSS is kind of like a post CSS alternative, and it will parse and transpile your CSS back to stuff that works in all the browsers. It's kind of like the Babel story, at one point we don't need to transpile our CSS, but other times you still need tools that can parse and analyze all of your CSS, whether that's to do things like prefix or transpile or just to get stats on what's going on. So the Lightning CSS has gone from 500,000 to 1.6 million. So it more than tripled in its usage. So I would say that's a pretty good pointer to this becoming more popular.
Yeah, definitely.
One of them here is you'll hear more about Rspack and Turbopack. I think we nailed that one. Turbopack is now stable. Rspack, I just saw a really good talk from the creator Zach at the conference a couple weeks ago, and really interesting look at moving Webpack over to Rust. And then he was also at the end of his talk, he was talking about how, like, even if you don't like Webpack, maybe the internals of Rspack could be surfaced in a different way, right? Like the reason we like Vite is because it's so easy to use and we don't have to write Webpack configs. So maybe in the next year, we'll start seeing more tooling around that.
Yes.
Vite is not going to release anything big in 2024. They just released Vite 6, which they said was their biggest release ever. I think that's more from like a code point of view, because from a user, nothing really changed. But they have teased or have released their new environments API, which is going to make doing server stuff and different JavaScript runtime stuff a little bit easier.
Yeah, so there was a release, and they say it's a major release, so we can say we failed on that one. Relative color will land in all browsers.
Color mix was canned so that we can just use the relative color syntax, which is simply using HSL, RGB, whatever when you want, and the from keyword.
Yes. Yeah, relative color. It actually, man.
It's in.
It's in-ish? Yeah.
It's in every browser. It hit Firefox in 133, which is just a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's in every browser.
Listen, so it's not in Opera completely. So,
Opera. Nobody uses.
I know. It doesn't support current color.
What kills me about these can I use is every time I post about anything, somebody goes, "What about Opera Mobile?" And like that's coming from a person who's doesn't understand what Opera Mini actually is. There are use cases for that, but chances are if somebody's using Opera Mini on your website, you don't need to worry about relative color syntax.
Yeah, no, it's available to 88.8% of users, which in my mind is a good amount of users.
It is in Opera. However, you cannot use current color.
Right, you can't use current color
as the color.
Yeah.
Big fan of relative color. At the very least, just to make a color somewhat transparent, being able to add an alpha value to a color without like the hex value. You can add the 7 and 8 hex digits on the end of a hex code to make a color transparent. I can never remember what the common hex values are for 50% transparency.
Yeah, I agree. I'm stoked. This is one of the most exciting APIs for me as a CSS guy.
We said the color contrast is going to land in Chrome. That was wrong. It's in no browsers right now. It's in Safari behind a flag. But they sort of like rolled it back and they're still trying to figure out what is a good algorithm for color contrast, because color contrast is a hard thing to get right. And you can only math it so much. So they're trying to figure out what that looks like. So that still, I'm dying for that to be added, but they're still trying to figure that out.
Yeah. All right. Next one is scroll animations landing in 2 browsers. That didn't happen. Let me tell you, CSS stuff happens so quickly these days that I've like talked about scroll animations. I've used them so much, and then I don't even know if they landed in 2 browsers at this point.
They're in Chrome. They're in Edge. And
that doesn't count.
They are in Opera.
That doesn't count.
They're probably in Brave. They're going to be in
Arc.
Oh,
yeah.
Yes, in Arc. No, so they are behind a flag in Firefox, and then they are in Chrome, but no sign of them hitting Safari just yet. Which is Safari's been first on a lot of this stuff in CSS, but Doesn't seem like this one. You can polyfill the JavaScript API though, so that is something. I mean that you can get them to work, but you cannot polyfill the CSS API. There was, but it broke, and it doesn't work anymore. I don't know what happened, but I looked into it myself for my own website, and I opted just to turn that off for the browsers that don't support it.
Word. All right. What about the year of CSS discovery? I don't remember what this is, but I'd have to imagine it means that like people were going to discover all these cool features about CSS. And I would like to say that did happen because,
yes.
Hey, I gave talks about it. You gave talks about it. We talked about it on this podcast. But more or less, I see people talking about the new CSS features all the time now. And I see people shipping them and using them. So
I'm at a point now where I'll like show one CSS feature in a video, and almost every video is, oh, what are you using to get that nesting? Is that Sass? Like, no, we've had nesting for a long time now, and a lot of people don't know about it. I think part of that is because so many people are just on Tailwind and they don't know about it or need it. But there's so many cool things landing in CSS, and I think people are starting to figure that out.
Yeah, and I'm excited. I'm excited for next year's year of discovery of CSS because that's how the stuff's going at this point. It is moving in the best way possible.
Safari will ship 3 missing progressive web app support.
They ship something.
In fact, well, they literally clawed back PWA support in European browsers. And then everybody raised a stank about it. And so they shipped add to doc was one. We had Jen Simmons on this year talking about all the new stuff. So the thing about Safari is they're not releasing them as like manifest progressive web app, but they're adding the features into the browser without them being like proper, I guess. Like you can now add to home screen and add to your doc. You can color specific things. You can take the title bar out. So I guess there probably was, I don't know, 3. It's hard to say. I should have looked it up, but still Safari's dragging their heels on a few of these progressive web app things.
Yeah, I wonder why. Yeah.
Yeah.
We had Firefox usage will continue to slip. You know, people talk about using Firefox all the time, but I just don't see Firefox really coming back to be major numbers.
Bit of a bummer. I don't think it's, if anything, like I would hope that here's a sneak peek of my guess for next year is that OpenAI is going to release a browser. Unfortunately, it's probably going to be a Chromium fork, but wouldn't it be cool if OpenAI put their billions of dollars behind Firefox and like started paying people to work on it? That'd be pretty neat.
You know what? There has been a world of Firefox forks recently. You know, since Arc announced that like their Arc browser is done, and it's basically, you know, the browser company pivoting from shipping a browser to shipping AI, which is ridiculous. But Zen browser is one that people often recommend. I don't know if you've seen Zen-browser.app. Zen browser is one that people often recommend, and I gotta say, I don't buy it. I just straight up don't buy it because it is like a very light skin on top of Firefox. And it's like, oh, we made it look like Arc. But what they didn't do is copy any of the features of Arc, whether that is like the launcher or any of like, you know, if you command T to open a tab and that tab is already open, it opens a new one, right? I use Zen and I was like, this is Firefox with a couple of extensions added onto it. So anybody out there is being like, Zen is the perfect replacement for Arc. It's like, not quite. But I do think it's interesting that somebody made a fork of Firefox that is seemingly getting some attention. And yeah, hopefully they add more Arc features to actually make it like Arc beyond a coat of paint. But
I dropped Firefox in this year, 2024.
Did. Yeah, you started using Edge, didn't you?
For maybe 6 months now. And like, man, installing Edge is awful. Like there's like AI games added everywhere, all this BS, you know, Microsoft Clippy Pretty sure you have to like log in via Excel spreadsheet. But once you turn all that Microsoft BS off, the dev tools are the best. They have people working on it's not just Chrome's dev tools, like it is, but they have added some selector performance stuff to it. They added the ability to dock the tabs to the left. There's like 5 or 6 different things in the dev tools, along with just the overall look and feel of them that make it really good.
Yeah. Nice. Yes.
Yeah.
I just can't. I'm sorry. There's enough Microsofty things about the UI that it just drives me nuts. I'm still on Arc. Yeah, I'm writing Arc till it can't be
until they stop updating it.
I know.
Yeah, the sad thing about that is the Arc failing probably means that no one is ever going to make a browser that is like for developers anymore. You know, it unfortunately has to be a bunch of AI garbage or like coupon clipping or like stuff built in that will just regular normie web users are going to want, which I think is why OpenAI is probably going to be one of the big players in this space.
And it makes sense if you think about it, because I mean, we can talk about this in our predictions, but like, we've seen the AI kind of take over of the search engine, whether that's Perplexity or just the simple like assistant type of searches that you do typically. Like, what was it, last night I was playing Kids Sequence with my daughter, and I didn't know if diagonals counted or not. What did I do? I didn't go to Google. I went to ChatGPT. Kid sequence, can diagonals count? Yes, diagonals count in kid sequence. Done. All right, I win. In your face, daughter. Let me tell you, my 5-year-old is so good at puzzles and spatial things. She clearly got my spatial skills, and she destroyed Courtney in kid sequence a couple times. And she comes in, she's like, "I'm gonna beat you," and I was like, "Oh, you don't even know. I got the same brain as you." And I'm like, I can take a 5-year-old in sequence, and we played to a draw. And I was just like an actual stalemate. I'm just like, yeah, feels like playing myself here. I love it.
That's good.
Yeah.
We also had paid Arc features. Yeah, that was wrong. So if you didn't hear, timed. Arc decided they're shutting down.
Kind of.
Well, kind of. They're making an entire new browser, which is like all AI focused. So the Arc itself is not going to be a thing for much longer. But then we had more XR web experiences as Apple releases in Vision Pro. You're the one with the goggles. Did that happen?
You know what? The goggles now, they do have XR, web XR support. So that did ship.
Okay.
Whether or not people are shipping XR, I've seen some cool things in some cool demos, but nothing practical. The only thing I really find to be a practical upgrade in the VR space is now that the Vision Pro has an ultra-wide monitor that I can use in my car or outside or whatever. But as far as web stuff goes, I didn't necessarily see anything major there. I do think that will be coming, especially we did see some like very glasses-based IR headsets that looked a little ridiculous, but they're coming. And once you have glasses that can do what the Vision Pro can do, then the WebXR is going to be all over the place, right? Your experiences are going to be placing things in 3D space around you rather than, opening up a window to browse through a website.
Isn't it funny how like technology can be so life-changing, but will not pick up because it looks dumb? Like the Segway was like that too. Like electric bicycles, electric scooters have literally changed people's lives because they now can have transportation. It's changed like food delivery. They've had a major impact on the world. But like Segway didn't get any of that because you look like a nerd riding it.
It didn't help that they like made you wear helmets and everybody is like in a cluster of Segways. Like there's a lot of things, but those like hoverboards, I do feel like that's probably some of the same tech, right? And like, all it took was to make it into an unsafe little toy device for people.
My daughter has one.
Really?
Yeah, they're like crazy. They're pretty fun though. I took one apart because I bought a broken one just so we could have a second one. And I was just like going through how it all works. And it's amazing that they're able to take the Segway tech and put it onto a board that you can buy on AliExpress for $37.
Yeah. I do love the the one wheel stuff. I don't have a one wheel, but I think it's so cool. I know I'm going to hurt myself very badly. Everybody hurts themselves on them, and I hurt myself doing anything. I fractured my tailbone in the cleaning the bathtub, so I will hurt myself on a one wheel. That will happen, but I want one anyways. Yeah.
AI, real quick, a couple AI ones. You said AI tooling is going to pop off. I think that we nailed that one. So V0 by Vercel got really big. We saw Bolt.new from the Stack Blitz, which has exploded.
Yep.
GitHub released their own version of it. I totally forget what it was called.
Cursor.
No, not Cursor. What was GitHub's? GitHub Spark is their version of it. So yeah, we saw a lot of AI tooling. Obviously, Cursor. We didn't say the word cursor this time last year, and it's all you hear right now.
Yes. It didn't exist, right? I mean, that's something we didn't predict, that there would be a rethinking of VS Code. I think either of us would have thought VS Code is just going to get either an extension or Copilot features.
I wouldn't have called the fork.
Fork, yeah. Would not have called that. Or that a fork of it would have actually taken off, because there has been forks in different ways, but yeah, the fork took off for sure. Small models that run in the browser. I have not used any small models that run in the browser, but I think you have, right?
Yeah, I used a bunch this year. Depth detection, background removal.
I did. Yes.
Whisper.
OCR. I used OCR.
OCR. Yeah, Transformers JS is behind a lot of those. It's really exciting that you can run those in the browser. But on the flip side, also, we saw a lot of, not for the smaller stuff, that's good, but for all of the coding AI stuff, almost nobody is training their own coding models now. They're all using Claude or OpenAI.
Yeah, which are great.
Yes.
Apps get Sherlocked by OpenAI. Yeah.
Yeah, did that probably happen at some point?
Yeah, no, definitely. There were, I mean, earlier in the days of OpenAI stuff, everybody was filling in missing functionality on top of it. And now it's I think just like Apple, I think anytime they release anything, it's shutting down a couple of people.
Yeah.
So,
We said on-prem corporate AI. I don't know. This probably happened. I think probably the closest thing to that is Facebook's Llama model, which you can just download and run yourself, along with a lot of models. But the Llama model is up with Stable Diffusion, or some of the big ones that you can run yourself, that can run with the big boys, Claude and OpenAI. So I would give myself a 2 out of 10 on that one.
No, be graceful with yourself. You get a 10 out of 10 on all of them.
Awesome.
Because I can definitely wiggle myself into a position to say all of these succeeded in some regard. We can make up something. But no, as usual, we did a great job predicting the last year, and I can't wait for our prediction episode that will be released. And I do want to say this, because we didn't say this off the jump when we said that we're going to be changing the format. We're actually going to be taking a small holiday break. So today is the 23rd. We will not be releasing an episode on Christmas or that Friday or that next Monday, and we will be back with a potluck on January 1st for you, and then the next episode is going to be our year predictions. So January 6th, I'm super excited, one of my favorite episodes of the year, because I get to feel smart without actually having to have the consequences for it until next year, right? So yeah, that's what we got. Do you have anything else, Wes? Anything you want to say before the end of the year here?
It was a great year. Thanks to everybody who made it such a great year. There's lots of really neat stuff came out, lots of really cool open source projects. Still love web development. Looking forward to another year of it.
Yes, likewise. And I do want to say, in addition to that, thank you specifically to everybody who came to either one of our meetups, either one this year or before, or anybody who filled out our survey, who has left a comment, been a part of this community. That survey really was really great for us, and I'm sure we'll be doing more in the future if you want to tell us how you feel, but tell us how you feel anyways. We love to hear from you.
Send your feedback in any means possible at any time, because we love it.
Yes, and specifically, Wes likes it more than I when you're very critical. Yeah, when we were doing the survey form, Wes was like, "Can you write on there to be very harsh and very critical?" And I was just like, "No, don't do that. I don't want to hear that."
No, I like it when people give it to me straight because it's like, you might be wrong, but also there's probably some good stuff in there.
I like it when people protect my fragile feelings here. So let's get into, before we head out for the year, let's get into sick picks and shameless plugs. I have a sick pick for us today. My son, just like most other 7-year-olds, is extremely into Pokemon, very, very into Pokemon. Specifically, he's been like playing the card game. He's in like a Pokemon card game club after school and stuff. And as a parent, and somebody who I had Pokemon when I was in middle school, but maybe not the card game, right? I had the blue cartridge. I never picked up the card game ever once. And so he's playing the card game, and I'm like, you know what? It would be really great if I could play this with him. And I don't want to, figure out the rules. But there is an app now on iOS and Android. I don't know. My camera will not. Either way, it's called Pokemon TCGP, Pokemon the Card Game Pocket. And it is the card game. And you open little packs of cards. And actually, Wes, you might enjoy some UI elements on this. I don't know if I can even show this.
I thought you were going to say I would enjoy Pokemon. I tell you, I will not enjoy Pokemon.
No, but the UI, and I won't even I can't show you this because my camera won't focus on it. But either way, the UI has these little packs of cards, and it's 3D. You can spin it around. You swipe your finger over the top to open it, and the cards come out. And if the pack is backwards, the cards come out backwards, and you have to flip them around to see what they are. It is a delightful thing, but it taught me how to play the card game, and now I can play the card game with my son, which has been a lot of fun. I feel like I'm connecting with him on that level, and he's very excited to open the virtual packs of cards in the games. Just don't fall for the microtransaction trap, and it's all good.
You know what? I met a guy at the conference, and I was like, "Where do you work?" He's like, "I work at Pokemon."
No way.
And I was like, "Oh man, that's amazing." He's like, "Yeah." He's like, "I learned from your courses, and now I have a job at Pokemon." And I was like, "Did you have to use the Pokemon API in your?"
Oh yeah,
because that API is used in everything. He's like, it's funny because all the jobs I didn't get, we used the Pokemon API as my take home.
That's awesome.
So maybe he worked on that. I'm curious what the tech is behind that. That's pretty cool.
I applied for a company that did Pokemon's website in Flash back in 2008, and I was very distressed when I didn't get the job because it was in Tokyo, and that would have been awesome.
That would have been cool. I'm going to sick pick something for my kids as well, and that is just buying a huge ass bag of Croc Charms. My kids are crazy about Croc Charms, and they sell them at the store for $1 or whatever. But I was like, you know what? We got to I know how to source stuff. So I think I bought 500 or something like that. And they just lay them out on the carpet and they go through them and pick their favorite ones. And then we use them as if you do your chores, you get to have a Croc Charm, and then they bring them to school and they give them to their friends or they trade them. And it's just currency. So I forget who it was that told me that Pokemon cards for doing your chores or whatever. Our house is Croc Charms.
Me.
And
I said that.
Yeah? Okay, there you go. It works well. And I think we should get Syntax Croc Charms because they're very fun.
Let's do it.
All right, I'll do it.
Nobody else out there, nobody steal that. We're doing that.
Syntax, yeah.
Yeah. If you see somebody doing that,
them right now.
Call them out.
Web development Croc Charms, maybe.
Yes. Get a CRT up in there. Cool. Well, check us out on YouTube, Syntax FM on YouTube. We'll release everything. We will catch you so much more there in the next year. And thank you so much for hanging with us this year. It's been awesome.
Peace.
Peace.